and then I'm just going to sit, maybe read. While I'm resting, my metabolic rate is actually higher than my BMR, my basal metabolic rate. So because I've added exercise into that, my metabolism has increased because my body is still adjusting. So that's just where the resting metabolic rate comes into play. And then resting energy expenditure is this is over a 24-hour period that you're going to see within even resting with exercise how that affects. Now, other things that with metabolism, there's a thermic effect of food. This is where post-meal elevation is due to digestive process. So what happens is your resting metabolic rate increases after eating, because your body is having to work to digest food. So that's why your resting metabolic rate is actually increased over that time frame. Then there's a thermal effect of exercise. So when you go exercise, you increase your core temperature, you've used some energy, so you're expending this heat. And so what's going to happen is that this is going to increase your metabolism. So movement increases your metabolism. So that's a big deal, and we have to recognize that movement is a big deal for us to increase your metabolism. And then total daily energy expenditure is the sum of your basal exercise expenditure, your the thermal effect of exercise, and also looking at your total daily. So those are those sums. So that just helps you a little bit out. Now, metabolism is the sum total of all physical and chemical changes that take place within the body. So again, it is the sum total of all physical and chemical changes. So you may be suffering from something that you shouldn't eat, and that has a chemical reaction in your body. So that's those toxins. It could be that you're also how much energy you expend on a daily basis. Are you up and moving? Those types of things. It does not. And here's the thing with metabolism. When are you eating? What types of foods are you eating? And then the other thing is, are you exercising? And then your body type. Everybody's body type is different, so we have to be aware of that. Somebody that's tall and skinny doesn't mean that they're healthy. And I think that's a misconception in our society. Somebody that looks like they're extremely fit, they may not be fit or eat the best. So we have to be aware of that. Every body type is different. So just be understanding of that for yourself so you don't get hard on yourself, and then the mental aspect of this comes into play. So other environmental factors also is exposure to cold weather, how that changes, like how your body, your thermogenesis. So this is like your body has to create more heat to stay warm. And so you're going to burn you're going to use more energy to do that. Exposure to warm or hot weather. So that's another thing. Exposure to altitude. Cigarette smoking can also have an effect on your, and then your energy expenditure, along with caffeine. Caffeine does this too. So be careful with that as we move forward. So some other things are what energy sources are used during rest. So the oxygen energy system prevails during rest. It's usually about 60% of energy from fat. About 40% of energy is from carbohydrates. So at rest, fat is being used. Carbohydrates is used when you are exercising, moving, doing activity, because it's the quickest way of getting energy. It changes into glucose the fastest, where fat takes a lot longer to create energy. Protein the same, but you're not going to get protein. Protein doesn't give you a ton of energy. Protein is a building block. It allows for muscles to be formed, allows for certain bodily functions to form and take care of those things. Excuse me. Now, we're going to look at muscle fibers. This is a big deal in sports, is that You have fast twitch, you have slow twitch, you have a little twitch in the middle, and there are people that just have their muscle mass. Muscles just are naturally, they're faster. You can train to be faster, but there will be a point where you won't be a 4.5 sprinter if you've always been a 6.5 sprinter. Like, you can work on it, but you would have to inject some extra fast twitch muscle fibers into the hamstrings, and how that's created. So you have 3 different ones. You have slow twitch red fiber, and this is slow oxidation, uses a lot of oxygen to be used. Then you have fast twitch red fibers. This is fast oxidation, but more of glycolytic. And then you have fast twitch white fibers. And these white fibers they don't need oxygen to be used. They actually are fast twitch fibers that are used for anaerobic power, and you would see a difference if we were to take a biopsy of those people's muscle fibers. You're going to see that they have white fiber in there. That's why they can run as fast as they can or jump as high as they can. Those are just some things that are different for those people. So it doesn't mean that you can't train it. It just means that there is a point of which you were only created with what you were created. Okay? So there is one area of understanding that you need to take care of some other things so that you can have as much success as possible. So, let's look at a couple other things that we need to look at. We'll switch over. So, what are the best types of energy for activities to increase energy expenditure? So, activities enlarging large muscle groups. So, one of the things that you can look at: walking, running, swimming, cycling. Those are some of the things that really you're using the whole body. Especially we're looking at swimming, you're using the whole body. When you're using running, you're using the whole body. Cycling, all those types of things. Cycling, not so much, but you still have to utilize your core to be as strong as possible when you're doing that. So the other thing that has to happen is intensity and duration. So we have to look at this whole process of intensity and duration too, that how long does the workout have to be? How long is it? What are you doing in that workout? So that's where exercise physiology comes into play with nutrition. We're not going to go into that. We're going to talk about just a little bit, but we have to be aware that is where you're going to take this knowledge and you can take that exercise physiology class. So we have to look at, okay, if I'm going to go out and run, and I'm going to just do sprints, I have to understand the energy system that I'm using. I'm using as much glycogen, I'm using glycogen in that moment as to do that quick movement and that burst of energy. Now, I need protein to create muscle mass so I can move that muscle that has that energy source in it. Fatty acids are there as a support system, but they're not giving me the energy to do a fast 200 meters. That's not where it comes from. Fat can be used for those that are in longer distances, and so they need energy to be able to utilize that for over a course of time. So, one other thing to be aware of, so intensity is the most important thing that we need to look at when you're going out and training. This determines the energy system you're going to use. Now, most exercises, tasks they're a blend of all the 3. And so we have to be aware of that. Like soccer is a blend. You're walking sometimes, you're jogging sometimes, and then it's a full out sprint. It's the same in basketball. Duration. Football is a little bit different though. It depends on the position that you're playing. So for instance, if you're a lineman, it's going to be a short amount of time. Most things like in football is short bursts of energy. But you got to be able to go over a court. You have to have some capacity over the course of time. This would be the same for like a tennis player. They're going to work hard for about less than 30 seconds. Then they'll have a race break. But the problem is they go for almost 3 hours. So, or an hour and a half. It just depends on the match, especially at the highest level. So those are some things to be aware of. We looked at the energy systems and runners. Now, people talk about lactic acid buildup, what's going on. So this is a study that is still out there, and where there hasn't been a lot of conclusive evidence. But what we're seeing with lactic acid is that it's a buildup of all this energy that you haven't been able to get rid of it because you've been doing so much work, and the energy is just building up in your muscles, and so it doesn't have time to release. So that's where lactic acid comes from, and that energy. So just be aware of those types of things. Now, there is the point of like the fat myth. Okay, so if I go on the treadmill and I hit, I want to burn fat, and they have that fat zone. Here's the thing, is that if you are not training specifically and you want to burn fat, being in the fat zone is not going to actually help you. We need to look at the energy system that you're trying to actually get to lose that fat. So it's a combination that actually needs to happen. If you want to lose fat, you're going to need to look at oxidation of fat, but you're also needing to look at the carbohydrates that you're burning, because really, even at the fat zone, you're going to first burn carbohydrates. That's what you're always going to burn first. And how long you're going to be in that is something that you have to take into consideration. So low intensity results in a higher percentage of fat being oxidized for fuel. It also results in a significantly fewer calories being expenditured. So that's something that you have to be aware of. If I'm just going at a slow pace, I'm not expending enough calories. And so then I go eat more calories. So if I'm trying to burn fat, I need to go calories in, calories out. Let's look at that picture, not just the content of fat. You will burn fat if you're exercising at the rate that you're supposed to be exercising at. And that's going to be different for everybody. But here's the challenge, is that just to get fat oxidation, you can't separate it out. I'm just going to go lift and I'm only going to use protein to lift. No, I have to use carbohydrates to start that process. Protein is a building block, and it's a repair mechanism. It's not for energy. So so there is that myth of fat burning. Other things, fatigue can happen if we're not eating properly, or we are dehydrated, not getting enough water. And there's chronic fatigue, and then there's acute fatigue. So it's like when somebody has been playing for 45 minutes, you're going to be tired in a soccer game. And you're going to be fatigued, but you also need to understand that there's going to be a process that they're going to gain. You can replenish that, and it's through your training that you can learn. So I think that's enough for chapter 1. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, but hopefully that will help you with energy expenditure. We'll talk more about those as time goes on, but have a good one, and I will see you around.